Hello, everyone. Welcome back to White to Tall Film Festival. And today I'm so honored to bring to you Peter Sage, the international serial entrepreneur. What a tongue tie. Philanthropist, author of the amazing book, The Inside Track, personal development advocate, motivational speaker, philosopher, adventurer, and my personal mentor. He is the self-mastery coach, Peter Sage. Welcome to White to Tall Film Festival.
Wow, Christy, what a wonderful introduction. Thank you so much. Very humbling. And yeah, it's only working with people like you that allow me to show up the best way I can, which is why I'm so proud to not just be that mirror for other people's greatness, but really proud when I see people shine their greatness out as you're doing right now. So thank you for inviting me. It's a real honor to be here.
Oh, thank you so much for saying that too. I mean, I really am grateful that you have taken on this, invitation to do this interview with us. Let me just tell the rest of the people watching in that I actually chanced upon you just a little over a year ago. And it was in the midst of the crazy COVID isolation in 2020. And there was something about you. I just needed to follow you. And it started because I wanted to just be a better mom, but something struck me and I started to see a different perspective in all the craziness that was going around. And this was really something that, I never expected, like just being able to cope. And I don't mind telling you, I actually lost my job around that period. I got told that it was going to happen soon. And at the same time, through this whole journey, I grew into something that was unexpected. And right now, this is exactly why I wanted to invite you for this beautiful White to Tall Film Festival, to inspire many more youth that will be watching in. So let's see a little bit more about you, right? Can you tell me more about the Peter Sage? We know you right now with sharing the stage with Tony Robbins, Sir Richard Branson, many big names like President Bill Clinton, and you're highly successful now, but I'm pretty sure that, when you were getting up and coming along, it wasn't always that rosy, but you did overcome all those trials, all those tribulations, and you are here just sharing your good work. I mean, that's really inspiring. And I would really like to invite you to share a little bit about that journey so that, our youth can follow your footsteps in that sense.
I appreciate that. And yes, one thing to always remember is that there is a tendency to see people that we frame on pedestals or superstars or whatever and think that they just magically arrived and didn't go through all of the same stuff that everybody else is usually resisting or afraid of. And the reality is everybody who is where they're at got to where they're at from where they were. And there are far more millionaires on the planet today that are self-made than there ever were born with money. We live in a level playing field where it's not what it used to be. It used to be background, parents, education, IQ, all of the stuff we were told was the factors. But we see now thousands of examples of people that have none of that bunny hop leaps and bounds above those that have all the opportunities, the resources, the right place, right time, the right academic credentials, the right background, mummy, daddy's bank account, whatever it may be. And yet they don't have any of that and they create magic. And then we see people that have all of that and create a life that is just so mediocre. So it begs the question, what is the difference that makes the difference? And obviously from my own journey, I never had money. I dropped out of school at 16. I've got no formal qualifications because I recognized early on that school is really, especially in cultures, the Asian culture specifically, is forced onto people as a way to tell you, if you have an education, you are worth more, or you'll be worth more in the marketplace, and therefore you'll make more money, and therefore you'll be happier. And the current suicide rate, the current depression rate against one of the highest levels of education is basically blowing that argument out of the water that it doesn't exist. It may have existed in the 1950s, but in the 21st century, I'm sorry, it doesn't cut it. What cuts it right now is not your ability to get an education so that you think you can please mom and dad. Right? Mom and dad want you to have the education because they want the best for you. And in their model of the world, that means getting an education at a level that in their generation led to a higher chance of certainty of success. But there is a huge difference between a life-chasing success and a life-chasing fulfillment and meaning. And right now, yeah, if you look at the happiest people in the world, it's not the people with the most money. It's not the people with the most qualifications, not the people with the best letters after their name on the business card or the right title. It's those that are able to take on a lot of the environmental challenges, especially through this period that we've gone through since 2020, and roll with the punches, have the mental strength, the mental fortitude, not the financial strength. I was having dinner with somebody in Marbella 2 weeks ago who, massive mansion, homes all over the world, millions in the bank, absolutely petrified of what's going on, what will happen, don't know how to discern it. She's on antidepressants. Yeah. And her biggest fear is losing her money. I'm like, well, what would happen if you think you lost your money? Well, I'd be upset. I'm like, you're upset now. Right?
Yeah.
I wouldn't be, I wouldn't be worth, anything. I'm like, that's because you're linking your self-worth to your net worth. And right now your self-worth is in the toilet, no matter what your net worth is doing. So, right now you kind of got the game wrong. Now, I'm not saying there's not a role for education. I'm saying if you think that learning subjects that you're not going to apply directly to your passion is going to somehow make you magically more valuable in the marketplace, then you're talking to the wrong kind of employer. And I've employed hundreds of people, including in Singapore, where I used to have a business in the financial district. So yeah, I understand the game. But the youth of today need to understand that knowledge mastery will not give them what they've been told it will give them. I'm sorry. It's just, I need to call it as it is. They already know enough on how to be happy, successful, and wealthy without going to buy another course, read another book, get another certificate. Because there is a huge difference between knowledge mastery and self-mastery. Those that get on and create the life of their dreams focus on self-mastery, not knowledge mastery. Knowledge mastery can be selective. If you want to go learn how to be a pilot, then yes, you need to go to pilot school. Otherwise, I ain't getting on a plane, right? If you're at the wheel, right? So when it comes to specialized knowledge, there's a role. But self-mastery comes first. And if you don't know how to master your emotions, if you don't know how to master the outer triggers that throw most people off the horse and then make them afraid of climbing back on it, the emotional horse. Most people are walking around with their, as I said, their self-worth in the gutter because there are rules for what has to happen in order for them to give themselves permission to feel great are absolutely screwed up, or they've never been given the map out of the maze of their mind. So the good news is that that's actually very easily fixable if you know where to look. It's like the old adage, there are no tough questions in life. There's only questions you don't know the answers to. That's all. And if you understand that if we know how to master this crazy thing in the mirror called us, and we have some basic pointers, your life can transform so much faster than thinking, if I go and get this qualification, that amount, that job, that level of whatever it may be, then I'll be happy. Well, that doesn't work. We know that doesn't work. Right? There's just too many references to prove it. So yes, right now, good news and bad news. The bad news is if you're following the, I need to have money and education and smarts and blah and all the rest of it, then I'll finally give myself permission to be happy. You're on a hamster wheel to nowhere. But the good news is you can step off that right now and get access to levels of fulfillment and a life that paradoxically gives you way more access to financial resources and success of what you would term of what you think you need, much faster than running off chasing a rabbit that you can't catch.
Yes, chasing the white rabbit. I've read that one from that that you wrote as well. I mean, but you're talking about all this, issues about mastering yourself. But I think, by and large, we're talking about youth here, and they probably are not really comfortable with the idea of themselves. And especially when you're talking about the you mentioned earlier on certainty of success. Now, this is something that we know that has been ingrained in us and this bit from, working here in Singapore, that, we need to contribute, to always be progressive, to always be, finding a way that we can be certain. And how can I actually impress upon this youth that, there can be another way to look at this?
The first thing we need to look at is the presupposition that you're not good enough where you are, because that will stop you. That will keep you chasing something that is a horizon. It's like, oh, I can see it. It's over there. Look, there's the horizon. Let me just run and get there, and then I'll be okay. And no matter how much success you think you're chasing, no matter how, what kind of level of success you think you're at, you will never, ever find yourself on the horizon. It's always pushed further out the closer you get there. I've worked with people worth $700 million, miserable and on antidepressants because they weren't a billionaire yet. That game never ends. Same with myself. I thought when I make my first million, I'll be happy. So I made my first million. And the only reason I was happy short term is because now I'd stopped chasing something, but I still wasn't fulfilled. So, of course, answer's obvious. It was obvious once I got there. I clearly need 2 million, the next horizon, in case I lost the first. Then I'll be happy. And that never, as I say, that game never ends. But if we look at the presupposition, when you can finally come to terms with being okay where you're at, because if you're not okay where you're at, I've got news for you. You're never going to be okay because you're always where you're at. So
that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, sorry.
If you can come to terms with the fact, listen, I was born good enough. I've got nothing to prove to anyone to validate my own sense of being here. The fact that you were born at 400 million to 1, if you look at the biology of the fact that you're the winning tadpole, right? Yeah, the fact that you show up means you were born with a gold medal more than any Olympian could ever get. Nothing to defend, nothing to conquer, nothing to prove. But if you feel that you've been sold the ideology of having to fit in order to get love, connection, approval, validation, and you're now out there seeking it from somewhere other than inside, you're on a lifetime search of emptiness that's never going to throw any kind of successful feelings your way. So coming to understand that the vast majority of people spend their life inauthentically, not because they're dishonest, but because they're scared. And if you're scared of goop, which as I'm sure you're familiar with, is the good opinion of other people, as most people spend their life swimming in goop, they're constantly thinking or filtering their thoughts through, if I do this, what will they think? Oh, well, I want to do this, but I'm scared. Well, you're not scared because it's mortal danger. You're scared because you think that you're going to lose approval, validation, connection, etc., status, ego, all of that. And the reality is that nobody's really offering that anyway, because they're too busy playing the same game. They're walking around as the star of their movie, just as you are. The problem is you're pretending to be a film extra in everybody else's movie, trying to get approval from the other stars, rather than recognize that you're the only star of your movie, full stop. There are no co-stars. Nobody else is in every single scene of your movie other than you. So when you show up at that level, you realize that people can only ever be a supporting cast, parent, sibling, best friend, what have you, maybe, and they change and come and go. Or the vast majority of people, we inauthentically, inadvertently, but inauthentically act around to try to get their approval are nothing more than film extras in our movie. Now, what's the definition of a film extra? Pretty simple. Somebody you're not thinking about when they're not in your scene. So by that definition, the vast majority of people we're trying to impress, trying to fit in with, trying to get approval from, are film extras in our movie. Now, the problem is when we think that they see us as the star of our movie, that's where it starts to go wrong, because clearly they're not starring in our movie. Whose movie are they starring in?
Theirs. Their
own. Which means that by definition, the vast majority of people we're running around trying to get approval from are nothing more. We are film extras in their movie, meaning they're not even thinking about us when we're not in their scene. So if you're walking around with this delusion of life, thinking that I've got to get approval from people, I care about the good approval of other people, I daren't do what my heart's telling me to do because, what will they think? Well, I can answer the question for you. They're not thinking anything. You're not important enough for them to give a long-term opinion of. Why? Because they're too busy being worried about what they think you're thinking of them. Everyone's running around in this bubble of self-importance, thinking, I wonder what everybody else thinks of me in my bubble of self-importance. And when that bubble bursts based on a reality check, then you start to experience more freedom. Then you start to be able to step up and say, well, okay, if that person starts to think bad of me, well, even if they do, which is largely in my own mind, because they're just being more worried about what I'm thinking of them. But even if they do, I come to the realization that I'm the star of my movie, which means that Everybody else's opinion of me is none of my damn business. When I can walk through that, here's the paradox. Everybody you wanted approval from or significance from starts looking at you with different eyes. They're like, wow, there's something about that person. They're not playing the same game of the insecurity game and trying to be friends and sucking up and like, blah, blah, blah. And no, why? They're walking as if they're the star of their movie. You see this with all the superstars. You take Rihanna as an example. When Rihanna walks into a room, if you didn't know she was Rihanna, you'd still look because there's an air, there's a grace, there's an elegance, there's a power, there's a presence. Now, there's a lot of women that can sing and dance as good as Rihanna on this planet. I've been to karaoke in Singapore, right? But very few have that energy where you walk into a room as if you own the room, not from arrogance, from knowing that you're the only star of your movie. So when you can walk into a room and not care about what the film extras in your movie are trying to criticize you, why should you? You're the star. Not from a comparison frame that I'm better than them. You recognize they're starring in their own movie, but your focus is on you. There's a humility to it because you appreciate that, hey, everybody goes to acting school and graduates at different times. And if some people are walking around fresh out of acting school, you as the A-list Oscar-winning performer aren't going to turn around and look down on them because they're a piece of, whatever. You realize that you were there at one point as well. So understanding that true freedom is where fulfillment is found. And when you understand money at its core, the reason most people don't have enough money is because they don't understand it. They think it's something you can get. No, it isn't. Money is something that is given as a result of the value you add. So if you're trying to get the money rather than give the value, you're always going to chase your tail. Just like walking into a gym saying, oh, wow, look at those weights. Hey, let me do a deal, Jim. Give me the strength. I'll go lift the weights. Well, we know that doesn't work. And a personal trainer is going to look at you like you're on drugs. Or you sit in front of the cold fire at night and say, hey, fire, I've just been to a negotiation class. I know I got this, right? Give me the heat and then I'll fetch you some wood. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Life doesn't work that way. But so many people are saying, give me the money and then I'll do something for it. No. You lift the weights, you get the strength. You chop the wood, you get the heat. You add the value, the money follows. And so trying to chase money because we think that we are, will be better or more certain or more happy or more approved of or more all of that BS. Absolute, stupid BS belief system, right? That, when we look at it that way, we start to realize that forget the money. If I'm chasing that, I'm chasing my tail. I'm chasing strength, not chasing lifting the weights. If I'm a sports person, if I'm a tennis star, I don't want to chase winning matches. I want to chase getting better at hitting the ball. As a result of that, and improving hand-eye coordination and reflexes and being able to move and stamina and all of that stuff, then I'll look over my shoulder and think, wow, I'm winning more. But if I'm chasing winning instead of the other actions, I'm chasing my tail. So the youth today really need to have a reality check on understanding that A, nobody cares enough about you to bother to give an opinion, certainly one that would rob you of your authentic expression to claim yourself as the star in your movie. And secondly, that if I'm focused on chasing money and trying to get money in order to be happy, you're never going to be happy because you're chasing strength, not chasing adding the value. You're not chasing lifting the weights. You're not chasing chopping the wood. Focus on that. The money will follow. Now, when I say adding value, obviously everything is correlated. If you want to add value by putting tins on supermarket shelves, it's not adding a huge amount of value, so you're not going to get a huge amount of money. If you want to add more value, like what you're doing, you're adding value to so many people here. There is a corollary reward for that. Some of that will lead on to other things. Whether it's not immediately financial, it will be connections. People understand, wow, Chris is something about that girl. She's creating something. She's seeking to add value. That's the purpose. Oh, money will find you. Sponsors will find you. Opportunities will find you. You don't have to go chasing stuff when you're adding value. It's like you don't chase wages. You chase showing up at work.
Put in the work and, the value will come and everything else will make sense after that. I mean, there's so much that you put into, that answer. And, I think it all also boils down to like how we want to fit in and how we want people to see us and how we're going to find significance and more likes on social media. And it all boils down to like wanting to feel great and not giving yourself permission to feel great now, right? And that's just so strange, because it also comes back down to the idea that I am not worthy to feel great yet, until I put in that value, which, it comes back to its own spiral in its own way. But, we understand about growth and contribution. We understand that we need to put in the work and then be able to reap that reward, right? But when will we then allow ourselves to feel that we're worthy of feeling great now?
Well, I want to give a phrase to all of the people watching or listening to this that I'd encourage them to tattoo on the inside of their eyelids.
Okay.
No matter what I've done, no matter what I've not done, I'm worthy of love. And there's some basic premises here, because anything other than the ownership of that realization is what I call emotional immaturity. See, we don't get to choose whether we mature physically. That's part of the rule set. Yeah, and we can stick on creams and take vitamins and slow it down if we think we can. But generally speaking, yeah, you don't get to vote on whether you age biologically. That's non-negotiable. But aging from an emotional perspective is a choice. And there are a lot of people today who, sadly, especially the youth, are going to stay emotional teenagers regardless of how old their bodies get. And that's where we start to recognize that what are the key steps? Well, the first one I've outlined about the good opinion of others. The first really major step on the road of emotional maturity is the day you wake up and realize that it's okay not to be liked.
That's a big one.
Yeah, because we've been conditioned that, oh no, say please go and, I'm going to post some crap about what I'm eating on what I call anti-social media. And I judge my self-worth based upon how many other people have been getting dopamine hits on scrolling by clicking an icon that makes me feel good about myself. Give me a break.
Exactly.
Right? If you said that to a psychologist 20 years ago before the internet, they'd put you in a straitjacket. Right? So when it comes to understanding that, when you wake up and finally become okay not having to be liked, you experience so much freedom. The paradox is most people start liking you because you're demonstrating what it is that they want. The ability to not have to be run around Singapore looking for people or places or things to reattach my umbilical cord to try to get some oxytocin. So that's step one. Step two is the day you start to realize that life is not a comfort-centric experience. That's what's been sold to you on 20th, 21st century materialism, consumerism, that bombards you with messages every single day that people spend billions of dollars funding and hiring very smart people out of top universities to get inside your head, to press buttons you don't know are being pressed in order to make you convinced that you're not good enough unless you take an action or buy a product. And your life is not good enough unless. And therefore, if you buy all this, you'll be more comfortable. Well, guess what? An athlete doesn't want to be comfortable. They want to be first. When it comes to the Olympics, you go to an athlete that knows they're an athlete and you walk into the gym mid-training session and say, hey, I've got something amazing for you. I've got a way that you can cheat on your workout. They're going to say, get out of here. I don't want to cheat on my workout. I want to get a personal best. I want to be throwing up in 30 minutes, not like hiding behind the couch. So when it comes to understanding life is a growth-centric experience, then we can start looking at our challenges as a mammal should. So we know that if you go and take a mammal and you expose them to an external situation, they perceive that as a threat, they will lose 30% of their muscle strength. We know if we expose that same mammal to a situation that it perceives to be a challenge, it'll gain 30% of its muscle strength. Every part of that body aligns in, okay, let's play, rather than play possum or go weak as a victim. Now, the problem is everybody's out there right now seeing this global situation as a threat, and they're going weak. Oh, I'm going to lose my job. Oh, I don't know what's around the corner. Oh, there's some big scary freaking virus running around. Whatever crap narrative that they're telling themselves, right? To disempower themselves because they see it as a threat. Well, I've got news for you. You just forgot you're an athlete in the gym. Your job is to step up and say, bring it on. I'm more resourceful. Can you imagine going back 3-4 generations? Yeah, I mean, what would Sir Stanley Raffles say, showing up and looking at basically a desolate wasteland, say, oh, wow, no, that's no potential here. I'm going to sail on. No, I'll tell you what would happen, right? If you were to step up and look at your challenges right now from an athlete, you start to realize that, boom, we're in an exciting time. I've got an opportunity here to tell my kids, when I finally have kids, that what was I doing when the whole world was panicking? I stepped up, I stood up, I looked it in the eye, I says, bring it on. You're living in a country where it's impossible to starve to death. What are you worried about? Again, go back to your ancestors. Oh, what's the problem? Oh my God, there's a nasty flu going around. You freaking kidding me? They're like, well, you mean the barbarians from the next village aren't running over with spears, swords, and burning torches? You mean there's not a plague that's killing, vast percentages of the population? No, I don't know. What is the case fatality rate for COVID? Well, officially it's 0.02%. Oh, which means that if I wanted to commit suicide by hugging people with COVID, I'd be struggling. It's a really bad way to do it. It's almost impossible to die statistically, according to the official figures, right? Are you kidding me? Yeah, I know exactly what your grandparents would say, or your great-grandparents, grow a pair.
Yeah, that's actually one of the things that we were talking about at work before we closed, right? It was also about like how we used to handle fear and stress. Used to just be suck it up, have a lolly and go right back to it, because that's how you're gonna get through it, and you're not supposed to get around it. But right now, it's looking as though everything that we're trying to create, is from this fear and scarcity based mentality. And there is so much how should I say it, defensive nature that's going around. And I think that's also because we're so used to being in a state of certainty, especially here. It's one of the best places to live. It's ranked like most livable city for 15 years, but at the same time, I have to say that there's this layer of stress. And before you even say it, I do remember that you did say that stress is the achiever's word for fear. And that stuck with me, right? And ever since then, I was thinking like, why do we actually feel so fearful when we are in quite a good space, actually? And then, there is this quote that you always quote, Tony Robbins. And I think it goes a little like, the quality of your life is in direct proportion to the amount of uncertainty we can live with.
Yeah, you can comfortably live with.
Expand on that. Yeah, you can comfortably live with. Thank you so much.
Because the key word there is comfortably. Why? Because you are always going to live with uncertainty. It's the nature of the game.
Yeah.
People love uncertainty. They just like uncertainty that they want or think they can control. That's why people like surprises. They like surprises they want. The surprises they don't want, they call their problems or challenges. But when you realize you're an athlete, you can handle that. You were born in a time in human history that equips you way more. But the problem is, if we think we're living in a place where we're trying to control everything, and we're living through a fear-based lens, and therefore when uncertainty shows up as it's designed to, we go to pieces, we see ourselves as a victim, we sell out on our potential, and we write that narrative for ourselves. Yeah, again, if the mammal sees it as a threat or it sees the same situation as a challenge, it's going to have two different outcomes. I'll give you another one. And when it comes to relationships, if you've been in a relationship where somebody's left you, you can turn around and say, well, clearly I'm not good enough, so they left me. Or you can say, wow, thank God they went, so they made room for somebody who's right. Same situation, two different ways of looking at it. But here's the thing. You extrapolate that scenario 12 months down the line, and you've got two different lives. One of them is going to be a victim, and you're going to be trying to please other people, or try to be good enough, or justify yourself for the next person so they don't leave you. And the other one is you're going to walk around with confidence thinking, wow, how lucky am I? And that's going to attract a much better partner. No one can change what's already happened. If you're trying to resist that, you're a fool. If the milk is spilt on the carpet, bitching about it for an hour is not going to put it back in the bottle. So you free up the resistance to what is, and you channel that into what's the next best move. You can't stop the fact that the government have shut down or the job's been lost, but you can channel the resistance energy that you were putting in, or the victim energy, or the moping energy, or the self-pity pot energy, or the fear-based energy, or the perpetuating the gossip energy, or any of that crap, and take that and channel it into, okay, boom, What is opportunities is this going to open up for me? How am I going to have the conversation with my kids 20 years from now and say, hey, listen, when I lost my job, what did I do? I went out and created a film festival. What do you think I'm doing? It's like, come on, right? You have an opportunity now to be the best version of yourself, to inspire people for generations to come. You have the opportunity to be the example, not the warning. And that, ladies and gentlemen, has absolutely nothing to do with what's going on in your world. Has everything to do with how you interpret what's going on in your world. Case closed. And I don't care what your backstory is. I've heard them all.
Mm-hmm. No, I totally agree with you. It all boils down to the perspective. You know, how you look at one single item can change the trajectory of your life forever. You know, just taking that 2-degree shift and everything can just either collapse all around you, but it's all your own perspective. You're the one that's looking out, right? It's your outside world. And you know, how you actually figure out whether it's in line with what you imagine it's supposed to be, like your inside model of how it's supposed to be. If that's just not going to be in line, then to you, that might be your failure. But if it's just shifting that little bit more into this more, you know, this more positive perspective, then that would make all the difference in all the choices that, you know, create this domino effect that just rolls on through.
100%.
But, yeah.
And yourself as an example, you know, you were teaching in a school, which has a certain ability to impact people at a certain level, but it's perpetuating a model right now that, as we demonstrated at the beginning, isn't really leading to a lifetime of fulfillment and happiness for a lot of the people that are learning that model. You get out of your own choice, or away from your own choice, you get positioned outside of that. Massive uncertainty. You rally around, you take on a program on how to improve yourself, and then decide to go and take on an opportunity on how to teach that program to other people to be able to inspire them, so that if they lose their job, then boom, they're going to look at it, smile, laugh, and think, wow, thank God that job went, so it made room for something better. And I'm proud of you for being able to step up at that role. I mean, you're going to make an amazing teacher. Anybody that has the privilege of being taught by you at this new level on the skills that you now have that you didn't have pre-COVID is going to have their lives transformed at an entirely different level. And it's just beautiful to see, because again, another quote from Tony, power moves to those in direct proportion to their willingness to serve, not their willingness to complain at their circumstances. If you're playing that game, I've got news for you. 80% of people don't care about your problems, and the other 20% are glad you have them.
Yeah, that's a sad, sorry state of affairs there. But it's true. Yeah.
So misery loves company. No, it doesn't. Misery loves miserable company. And so you want to stay there. Life is going to continue to give you opportunities to demonstrate and justify the fact you're a victim. And, when you finally get tired of that, as some people, takes a lifetime to do, some people, they learn quick, right? They say, boom, dang, if it's going to be, I'm going to make my life happen. I'm in charge of my own thoughts, because as Gandhi said, nobody can do anything to you emotionally without your permission. And when you own that, you realize the freedom you have. Somebody comes up and calls you a nasty name, you don't take it personally. That's their projection. They're having a tough day. You send them some love, some compassion, or whatever. You don't sit there moping about it over dinner and say, you're not going to believe what somebody called me today. You don't get upset. You realize everybody can only ever project from where they're at. And if someone's upset, they're going to project upset. If someone's angry, they're going to project anger. That's got nothing to do with you. Your job is to show up as the best version as you can, knowing you're going to make mistakes. It's part of the game. I was on a podcast the other week in Bulgaria, and somebody interviewed says, well, you failed a lot in business. Aren't you like scared what people think about, your failures? I'm like, you kidding? My failures are my capital. That's my biggest learning. And I shared the story of Tom Watson at IBM, the founder of IBM, which back in the 60s had the same GDP as most countries. And there was a famous story of a sales guy that lost an account, screwed something up, and it cost him $1 million. Now, $1 million in the 60s, this is US, not Sing dollars, right? $1 million in the 60s was a lot more money than it is today. Yeah. And so the guy knew clearly he's going to get fired. So Tom Watson called him into the office, and he kind of walks in, he started trudges in. He's like completely depressed. He's bodying out. He's already thinking, I'm going to be out. No one's going to hire me after that anyway. Well, you imagine the self-talk. And Tom Watson says, do you know why you're here? He said, oh, clearly you're going to fire me. He says, fire you? It just cost me $1 million to train you. Why would I get rid of somebody that's learned that mistake? That's how I see my failures. They're my biggest learning opportunities. I would rather fail, and as I have, I've lost millions in deals and on business and whatever. And that's a far more valuable education than trying to blow 100 grand at an MBA. Yeah, and yeah, you got one of the best business schools in Singapore. You got INSEAD. I used to sit on the board of advisors for INSEAD for many years. Yeah, at their campus in Fontainebleau in Paris, and I used to do a lot of their opening and closing keynotes for their MBA graduates. I know what goes on in schools like that. And yeah, it's usually populated by a lot of people that are seeking certainty through a certificate. Most people that graduate the MBA program never go on to start a business. Blows my mind. Yeah, on the entrepreneur program. So yeah, it's because they're looking for certainty. And if you're chasing skills to get certainty, you're looking for external validation to replace an internal feeling. Never the twain shall meet. When you own you, regardless of your bank balance, regardless of your certificates, regardless of what you got on your last test, regardless of what other people think, then boom, right? That's when true power shows up. And one thing I learned from one of my greatest mentors, George Zalicki, he said, the genesis, the beginnings of true power are the moment you recognize you don't need it. And that ties in with probably one of my favorite quotes I'm going to leave the listeners with here today. And that is this: we all have two lives. The second one begins when you realize you only have one.
Now that is a very powerful quote. I'm going to take that back with me as well. And I'm so happy that you actually mentioned fail faster, fail forward. That's what we always try to say to, everyone here as well, especially in creatives industry. And I think that, you leaving with that, helps us to remember that it's that self-talk that we have to stop, stop talking ourselves out of, getting off our asses to try something new, because that's the only way that we will learn. And I think that's exactly what this entire White to Tall Film Festival is all about. It's about listening to people's stories, finding out what's your story and finding out what will you stand up for, which cause are you going to stand up for. It's about sustainability. It's about mindset. It's about, empowerment and taking ownership of my own life and just hushing that self-talk so that we can, be courageous enough to just get out of our own way to success.
100%. Remember, we are always have the ability to control what input we allow ourselves to have. We don't get to control whether or not we're programmed. By design, you are going to be programmed. But you get to control how you want to be programmed. So if you're scrolling anti-social media, if you're listening to people's victim stories, if you're, doing all of that kind of crap versus taking charge, getting up in the morning and reading inspirational stuff, programming yourself with why and how you can, not why and how you can't. Programming yourself with possibility thinking, impossibility thinking, not like victimhood. Hang around with people that support you and look at you and encourage you, not justify why you're all a bunch of losers and it's not happening and the world's going to hell in a handbasket. Right? That's you don't get to vote on whether or not you're programmable by design as a human being. We're cybernetic organisms. It's just how we're wired. But you get to control your level of input. And so many people, if you talk to your best friend like they talk to themselves, you wouldn't have a best friend.
It's true. That's so true.
Love yourself like you actually love yourself. Why? Because the reality is nobody's going to love you more than you love yourself. Which brings us back to the primary differentiating rule when it comes to understanding personal growth. People can never rise above the opinion of themselves. So why not work on increasing that as an opinion, not through getting other validations. They're too busy running around trying to get approval and validation from everybody else. By recognizing, A, you were born good enough. You got nothing to prove. B, no matter what you've done, no matter what you've not done, you're worthy of love. C, you have the potential to be a champion just by showing up, because everybody came here with a skill set that has the ability to inspire. You may not know what that is because you've never looked in the mirror hard enough. But everybody has the ability to touch a heart outside of themselves, to put a smile on somebody else's face. And when we do that, we feel better because we're coming from a place of being able to contribute back rather than run around, again, looking for someone to try and draw a lipstick smile on our own face. Never going to happen. Totally temporary. All right, there's so much potential, especially in Singapore. You guys have an understanding of discipline. Some cultures in the West never will. You have an understanding of prosperity and references for it that a lot of places in the East never will. Yeah, you go to the slums of Mumbai. Yeah, that ain't the Marina Bay Sands, I can tell you. Right? So yeah, you have a whole different set of references. Why on earth would you even entertain the thought of thinking you weren't good enough or get depressed or not thinking it was possible? Boom. I'll tell you, you've never been told. Well, I'm telling you now. You're damn good enough. And don't let anyone ever tell you you're not. Well, on that note, go swing the bat and enjoy the game of life.
No, I totally agree with you with that. But, you know, in Asia, we are our harshest critic. And I have to say that that's how we actually, like, you know, rate ourselves about and you know, measure how we're doing so that we can actually get better or, you know, progress on. And I think that sometimes we could be too hard on ourselves. So thank you for saying that, right? We have to love ourselves first to be able to admire ourselves and feel validated first before we even, you know, start damning ourselves that we're not good enough. So thank you.
Sometimes I'd probably invite you to revisit that most of the time. And I've worked with way too many people who were contemplating suicide because they got 80% on an exam and their parents belittled them because they're their own critic, or they criticize themselves for only getting 80% and therefore, you know, beat themselves up rather than celebrating the fact they got 80% or 50% or whatever it is as a dart in the board so that they've got a springboard to jump up from next time.
Then how can we solve this? Like, I mean, not solve it, it's not something that we can solve, but, you know, like changing that mindset. Earlier on, you also mentioned, like, you know, programming yourself in the morning. That's something that I think has actually helped me out, like, you know, create that, you know, set that GPS for the rest of my day. You know, can you give us like one last challenge, you know, for the youth? I ask all my advocates this, give us a challenge and, you know, maybe some advice, maybe if there's one thing that you want.
Celebrate your mistakes, celebrate the time where you didn't win. Why? Because if you're the smartest money in the room, find a smarter room. Yeah, you don't grow, you don't get better at tennis by playing people you can beat. You don't get better at chess by playing people you can beat. You get an ego hit thinking you're more superior, but we're designed to not get the right answers all the time. If you're getting 100% in class, it doesn't mean you're smart. It means you're too stupid or scared to go to a higher level. Yeah, to challenge yourself outside of your comfort zone. Or if I stay in my comfort zone, then I'll be good enough. If I set goals I know how to achieve, then yeah, I won't fail and people won't think bad of me. Bullshit. Right? If you set goals you know how to achieve, you're playing so beneath your potential, you'll never climb out of the pit. So recognize the fact that, yeah, when it comes to the journey of life, our role here is to grow, and we grow through challenge. Are you going to get it right all the time? I damn well hope not. I've probably lost more times than I've won, but I keep my average number of tries up. Why? Because I enjoy playing the game. Yeah, I came out from the situation in the inside track, what was it, 4 years ago, $350,000 in debt, no business, no credit rating, nothing. I had to dig my way out of a hole so financially deep, most people will never be able to see the bottom in their lifetime at that level. I was excited. I've never climbed out of a hole that deep before. This should be fun. I have no idea how to do it. Let's go swing the bat. And today, debt-free, eight-figure business and things going in an amazing direction. And if I lost everything tomorrow, it'd be a damn good excuse to go again. Understand that. Yeah, everything that you have right now, you don't own. Oh, what do I mean by that? Well, you're starring in the movie of your life. You don't get to keep the props at the end of the movie. Right? The concept of ownership is flawed. You may be able to control the direction of certain things while you're here. If you've got some land that you think you own, well, guess what? That land was around 1 million years before you. It's going to be around 1 million years after you. You don't own anything. You have the ability to potentially influence it while you're here. That's about as far as it goes. But when it comes to understanding that everything in the physical world means that its destination is non-physical. So what does life become? Life becomes about, who do I show up as here in this brief moment I have to go swing the bat, enjoy life and create magic? Or do I want to live under a box in case I'm scared that something outside is going to hurt me? Give me a break. You're way better. That's not what you were born for. And the only person that can talk you out of that is you. And you can only do that if you listen to people that agree with you. That's it. trade up, get a better peer group, and you'll be amazed at how fast you change.
Amazing. Thank you, Peter. That was really, truly amazing. Like, making sure that you just let go of that ego, because, what is the intention coming from? Is it to validate yourself and come from an ego hit, like what you said, or is it, to give back and contribute and grow? So, yeah.
The ego is always going to be around. We can't have an egoectomy unless you want to be enlightened, but it's recognizing who's in charge. See, that the paradox is that when we are driven by ego to try to get significance, validation, approval, certainty, we're on we're running east looking for a sunset. Yeah, we're trying to catch the horizon. But as soon as you give up the need to get that and you replace it with an intention to give it to others, you end up getting what it is that you gave up. The difference is you no longer need it. People look at you with significance. You don't need the significance. You give it yourself, but you get more of it and respect from others because you have that special something, that edge, that X factor that says, I don't need your approval. I love you anyway. It's not being arrogant. Yeah, I hope you at some point be able to let go of your own insecurities, but I'm my own boss, starring in my own movie, marching to the pace of my own drum, and I'm going to make my own mistakes. I'm going to learn from those and have fun while I'm doing it. Now that's the way to live life.
Yeah, always enjoy the journey. Well, thank you, Peter. I'm so respectful of your time. I'm looking that, we're almost hitting the hour now. So thank you so much for sharing and spending your time with us, and, just giving us some jewels and gems that we can always take back and, just try to redefine where we are coming from. Context is definitive, and this is how we're going to be able to move that into a new space and maybe find a new angle or perspective that we can actually add value to the films that we make. So, well,
100%. And again, not about being perfect. If any of the listeners or viewers can take one thing out of what we've shared today and go make a slight difference with that, it's a win. Don't beat yourself and think, oh, I've got to do X, Y, and Z. That's, you don't walk into a gym 20 pounds overweight and walk out ripped. It's a process. Enjoy the process. A 6-year-old is not an imperfect teenager. They're just at a certain different level of their own journey. A teenager is not an imperfect adult. An acorn's not an imperfect oak tree. It's a perfect expression of where they are now. That's why it's okay to be where you're at. It's your direction of travel, and you can always choose that now. And boom. Now we get some real progress.
Exactly. Oh gosh, this is such a powerful interview. Thank you, Peter. And
pleasure's mine.
Taking it back to our viewers watching in. Well, this is, after all, just going to be here to inspire you. You can watch it over and over and over again, and make sure that when you start crafting your films, don't be afraid to just shoot it, edit it, test it out, get it out there. Fail fast, fail forward. And remember, always have the intention coming from love. And I'm sure that you're going to make a wonderful film. So thank you. And thank you, Peter.
My pleasure. Looking forward to seeing some of them. Take care.
Oh, I will share them. Thank you so much.